Hello everybody and welcome to eSmart Week Building Cyber Safe Communities. We are halfway through our very exciting week, being Wednesday. I hope that you have all enjoyed the activities and information that you have gained from the toolkit, and that you're getting some great ideas. We're really looking forward to seeing your ideas and hearing all about it at the end of the week, hopefully getting some reports back in of what you've done and how your audiences, whether your teachers, librarians, parents, have enjoyed using the toolkit and gaining some insight into how to build cyber safe communities. My name's Amy. I work at Alannah and Madeline, and I have my colleague Sandra with me today. If you would like to ask any questions, please just put your hand up and we will unmute you, and we'll hear your question and hopefully we can answer it. So let's get started. So in today's webinar, we're going to be looking at respect, basically, and respect when communicating. Two things we're going to focus on today is what does it actually mean? What does respectful communication mean within a classroom, within a library, really within any means of communication when it comes to children in particular, no matter what age. And the other thing we're going to look at is, does the same principles apply when communicating online and offline? And what are the consequences of disrespecting each other online, offline, and you know, how we can really teach our children that things like cyberbullying and feeling excluded, both online, offline, bullying in general, could be as simple as respecting each other when communicating. So to begin, we really need to understand what respect is in general. Just whether we're talking about communicating or just in general life, really. So this is really sums it up, what respect means. So let's have a look at this. Respect is when you treat something or someone that matters to you or others like it matters. So that's pretty straightforward. So that can be in regards to equipment, anything really, people and objects. And disrespect is when you treat something or someone that matters to you or others like it doesn't matter. So I think that's really important that we understand as a community what respect actually means. So what we need to really understand when we're teaching our students what respectful communication looks like, we actually have to teach the principles of it. So being attentive, so that means actually showing the other person that we're interested in what they're saying. Listening carefully, so we're going to have a look at what that actually means in a moment. What does it mean to actually listen correctly? Letting the speaker finish what they want to say is always respectful. So let's have a look at active listening and what the verbal cues are and how we can show that we're listening actively. So when we're communicating with someone, it's always great to show that we're remembering what they're saying. So it could be a matter of repeating what you've heard in a respectful way, and it just shows you're actually really interested in what the other person's saying. Questioning. So you can actually question and ask questions about what that person's saying, and that indicates that you've heard what they've said and that you're interested in the conversation. Reflection. So actually reflect on what they've said. By repeating what you've heard, it actually illustrates that you have listened to what they've said. And clarification. So if you are unsure about someone and what they're meaning when they're talking to you, to clarify what and actually ask what do you mean by that can actually really help with making sure that you're on the same page. So we're going to have a look at these verbal cues to see later on in the webinar if we can show these things when we're online as well as offline, because that's really important. So showing respect when communicating looks like being aware of a person's facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. These give clues to how the other person might be feeling. So that's a really interesting fact about respect when communicating, because if we have a think about how that looks like online and offline, we can see that when you're offline, yes, you can be aware of their facial expressions and body language, but we'll have a look to see whether you think if you're online, can that be a factor? Also, noticing how others respond will help you know if the conversation is going well or not. Again, is that something that you're able to do when you're communicating online? So these are the type of things that we can make our students aware of, whether we're in a library or a classroom or at home. These are the things that some students or kids may get confused when online, and that's when things like cyberbullying or exclusion can rear its head. So we also have non-verbal cues for active listening. So let's have a look what they look like. So as we were talking before, body language. Obviously when we're talking to someone, we can pick up fairly easily whether they're enjoying the conversation or whether or not they're offended by what you're saying, whether they're interested, whether they're bored, whether they're enjoying it. So body language is a really big cue for active listening. Obviously, giving some cues back, whether you're enjoying the conversation by smiling. The alternative, obviously frowning, will give you an idea that what you're saying is not making the other person feel all that great. Keeping eye contact's a really big one to show interest, and of course that in turn shows that you're respecting them. Mirroring, so actually doing what the other person's doing, it actually really highlights that you are respecting them by listening and you're really into the conversation. Your posture, so if you're forward and keeping that eye contact, you're really showing that you're interested in the conversation. If you're slouching back, you're probably showing that you're not very interested in what they've got to say. So this brings us to, is it the same when online? This is something that I think is really important to teach our kids of today's age when their whole world is online. And just going back to teaching the basics of respectful communication, those things that we were talking about, active listening, verbal and non-verbal cues. Once they know that, how to show that respect within the classroom or within a library or at home, it's about bringing it back to the basics and saying, well, if you can show these things as much as you can online, would that, you know, make it a better experience for everybody? So let's have a look whether we think that we can show these same principles online. Before we get into this, is there any questions? If you have any questions, just pop your hand up and we can answer. I'll just have a look, see if there's any questions. No. Can I have a show of hands who's actually a teacher? If you could just put your hand up by pressing the hand icon, and then I can see who's actually. Thank you, Karen. Gary, wonderful. Okay, so I'm assuming that the other, and we have Kate. All right, fantastic. So we've got 3 teachers listening at the moment, and I'm assuming that the other attendees are in a library or a parent. So I'm hoping that these ideas to actually teach respectful communication can help in your community as well. Thanks so much. So, Gary, do you have a question? No? Karen, do you have a question? Okay, I think it was just for the hands up. Oh yes, we have a question from Bobby. Thank you, Bobby. We'll just have a look at your question. Oh, fabulous. So Bobby's telling us that Bobby is a grandparent. So thanks so much, Bobby, for joining us. So, Bobby, is there anything that you are wanting to get out of this webinar as a grandparent? if you would like to give us an idea of what you're after, some things to take away from this webinar, we can make sure that we're ensuring that you get something out of it as well. All right, so we shall continue. And as I said before, if you do have a question, please just indicate and we will answer it for you. All right, so is it the same online? As we were talking about, children of today are online, no matter what age really. Statistics show that from 2 they've been handed an iPad. By the time they're 10, most have got a smartphone, and particularly if they're in their teenagers, everything's online through social media. Schools are expecting parents to buy devices from grade 2 to grade 4 is usually the start time. So it's really important that we do teach the simple act of respect online. So let's have a look. So online, I'm just going to have a look at the same things that we were looking at before. So remembering, can we show that we remember online? Yep, we can, just by, if we're in a messaging function online, whether it be an app or emailing, communicating, we can show that we remember what they're saying just by repeating. Questioning, yes, we can still use the questioning technique, and we can still clarify what the others are saying. We can definitely reflect. Just go back, sorry. So the verbal cues that we show offline, we can definitely show online as well. So that's a positive. Just checking. Okay. So let's have a look at our non-verbal cues. So this is, I think, where when children understand that we can't show the same non-verbal cues, this is where I think we might, if we can teach how to show online, to show online what we do offline, then we may be able to help with the cyberbullying incidents and things like that. So body language, let's have a look. Can we keep eye contact? No, we can't, unless obviously you're on a Skype or a webcam, but usually they're usually on social media. They can't keep eye contact. You can't smile at the person that you're messaging. We can't mirror their body language, and we can't show them their posture. So this is, I think, is really important for them to understand that when we're talking to someone offline, we can show them how we're feeling through our body language, and body language is really important to illustrate to the person how we're feeling about them. So when you're messaging, when you're using email, it's really difficult to understand the meaning around what you're trying to say without these things. So what are the consequences of not being able to show these non-verbal cues? So this is when we have issues of cyberbullying. And cyberbullying looks like abusive texts, emails, hurtful messages, images or videos, imitating others online, excluding others online, humiliating others online, and nasty online gossip and chat. So if we have a look, what are the types of cyberbullying that may be caused by disrespectful communication? So definitely abusive texts and emails. Maybe that it's just the other person has taken it the wrong way because they can't see the body language of the other person. Obviously, if it's intentional, then yes, it's a cyberbullying incident. So hurtful messages, images or videos, this is definitely a form of cyberbullying, which really comes down to disrespectful communication. Humiliating others online is obviously disrespecting others online, and nasty online gossip and chat. So if we can teach our children that these types of things are really disrespectful communication and how we can get over that, perhaps we can teach them that, stop, obviously, people being hurt by cyberbullying incidences. The other important information to sort of get across. It's not just cyberbullying, it's also if children are starting to be involved in these type of things that we're talking about, it does affect their digital reputation. Now, if you haven't heard about digital reputation, quickly let you know what that's all about. So it's defined by one's behaviour in the online environment and by the content they post about themselves and others. So what we try and teach our students that we go and speak to is that your digital reputation is really important for your future. And it's probably already been, your digital footprint, similar thing, is probably already begun the moment you were born. Perhaps your parents posted a picture of you on the internet on your first birthday or your 5th birthday and so forth. So what it means is anything that you've had posted about yourself online has started your digital reputation. Obviously, a positive digital reputation is great to have, and as our children get onto social media, which is they're able to at 13, everything that they put online, whether it's through a photo on Instagram or a message on Facebook, it's captured there forever. And I think that's really important to get across to our children, that even if it's a text messages can be kept forever. And I think that's something that our children really struggle with, realising that that once they've posted something, it's going to remain there for always. And that brings me to a social media platform it's an app called Snapchat. And if you don't know what Snapchat is, very quickly, you take a photo of anything. It could just be your TV, and you send a message and you send it on to that person. It then only remains on your phone for 10 seconds, and then it's gone. Now, when I was talking to a group of Year 9 girls who you would think about 15, they were quite savvy with the online world, they were really struggled to grasp that it had gone off their phone. That meant it had gone forever, but in fact it doesn't. And now if you send it to another person, they can actually save it as well. So if you're sending, if your children are sending unkind messages, photos that don't depict people in appropriate ways, that starts obviously a negative digital reputation. So what we're trying to teach our children, it's really important, they need to protect their digital reputation. They need to stop and think about the content before they post or send, and the big one is treat others online as you would like to be treated. Very much how we've been teaching from day dot about respecting everybody and treating everyone as if you would like to be treated offline. The other thing about digital reputation is it's very likely that when they go for a job that their boss would Google them, and that's happening more and more. And it really, obviously, if you have two people and one has a positive digital reputation and another one doesn't, it's very clear who they'll choose. So it's really embedding that into our children's mind, that it's really important to note no matter what they do online, it's going to be there forever. So I think the important thing to remember is we can actually teach this difference. And we can teach how to have respectful conversations online, just like we've been teaching children to have respect within the classroom, the library, at home. So I think the message we need to get across is treat people with the same respect you would give them face-to-face, and report. And a big learning at the moment in schools and libraries is to report bullying behaviour instead of engaging with it. So there's many ways to report now, and it's very easy for a child, once they know the avenue, to actually report this if there's anything that's making them feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to give you some ideas and some lesson ideas to actually how to teach this difference. Whether you are teaching prep to Year 10, it's the same principle. Obviously the output will be different depending on the age of the child. If you're in a library, obviously you can also use these resources. with a small group or one-on-one, and you can even do it at home. So let's have a look. There's 4 lessons coming up to give you an idea, and please ask any questions if you are unsure. Okay. So I think the most important thing to start with is actually putting it back onto the child themselves. So you could actually start by saying, well, what does respect mean to you? Because I think that every child, no matter what age, is going to know what respect is, but can they actually articulate what it means to them? So just by giving them this simple X chart, it actually just makes them reflect within themselves what it looks like to them, what it feels like, what it thinks like, what it sounds like. So as you can see, you can give this task to a 5-year-old, you can give it to a 15-year-old. Obviously, the output is going to be different and appropriate for their age. So what you're trying to look for, these are the type of things that you'd hope would come out. So what it looks like. So what you want them to reflect is, what do people do when they're being respectful to you? So, I mean, kids love thinking about themselves, and they're very insular anyway. So I think they'll find this task quite enjoyable. So what do people do when they are being respectful to you? And then what do you do when you're showing respect to others? So what does it actually look like to them? So this is where your active listening may come out. They may say, well, they're looking at me in the eye. They're you know, they're nodding their head. So this will probably very much obviously looks like we're talking about offline, so when you're actually talking to someone. So for Bobby, our grandparent, it can be when you're having a chat with me, you know, about school. What does it look like when we're talking about what you did for the day? So what does it feel like? So here you might want to say, what does it feel like when you're talking to someone over the phone, if you've got a younger child that may not be online at the moment, or if you've got the teenager, what does it feel like when you've received a message online? So it might be, how do you feel when you see others showing respect for other people? So if they're having difficulty with that one, what does it feel like when you're, you know, maybe in the negative, if you've seen someone being talked down to, how does that feel like to you? And then reverse that to see, well, how can that be taken in a respectful manner? What does it think like? So what do you think when you're being respectful? So this, you think, you know, you could, here you could say, well, I think that, you know, I'm feeling great, it's giving me positive energy and so forth. What do you think when you are showing respect for others? What do you think when you see others showing respect for other people? And the last one is, what does it sound like? So what can you hear when people are being respectful to you? So it might be they're laughing, they're having fun. What do they say? How do they say it? So to begin with, I would give them the X chart and let them have a go. And then bring up this chart if you need to give them some more ideas, or have that yourself and use that as a discussion point. So once you've actually taught what respect is from the grade or the small group, or even just the person you're wanting to, you know, zone in on, then you can have a discussion of, okay, say you've got a small group, and it's great to then reflect with the whole group and say, okay, well, you think that it looks like this person feels this way, and then you might come up with a whole new, you know, 10 other aspects of respect. So I think that's really important to teach actually what respect is and what it means to them first. Then you can get on to, so what does it look like? What is the difference between communicating online and offline? And what you want here is you need to have a look at what is different about communicating online, what is different to communicating offline, and what is the same. This is when we try and make them understand that it is very different, and we have to be aware of the differences in order to remain respectful. So here you'd be looking at, well, different online, obviously you cannot determine body language. So that's really important to actually teach, to say, well, there are cues that you're not going to pick up on online. So that's going to make it difficult to understand how the other person's feeling. So that means we have to use our other cues more so when we're online. So when we're looking at different online, this is where you're hoping that you know, things might come up like the power and ability to walk away and stop the communication if you're feeling threatened, or you know that the conversation isn't going and it's going to turn disrespectful. So that's the difference with that. So they're the main two differences that you would hope would come out of the teachings. Another way to teach it is to do a SWOT chart. So a SWOT chart is you're actually thinking about one thing. So here I've just highlighted, let's think about online communication. We're going to look at the strengths of online communication. Then we're going to look at the weaknesses, any other comments that the child may have, and what the threats are to online communications. So weaknesses and threats, you might say, are they the same thing? No, they're not. Weaknesses could be just something that you know, may make it more difficult. Threats are something that could be harmful or hurtful to the person. So let's have a look what you'd be looking for here. So obviously the strengths of online communication, the reach is amazing. So we can communicate with our friends overseas or interstate without having to be in the same place. And obviously it's enjoyable being online, and that's why, you know, our youth love it. They love the online world for what it brings. Weaknesses, again, we want them to realise it's a lack of body language and physical cues that respect offline we can grasp and really have a great knowledge of. That's something that once they're aware of, hopefully, you know, problems may cease. And threats, well, obviously the threats are they can become victims of cyberbullying, and as we looked at, there's many different versions of what cyberbullying means. So this just highlights a little bit more than the compare and contrast model that we looked at before. This actually brings up that you know, there are strengths, weaknesses, but there's also threats to the online communication that we need to be aware of. Another way we can teach it is through a PMI chart. And for those of you who don't know what a PMI chart is, very quickly, it's just taking a focus, which again is communicating online. Again, you can the focus can be communicating offline. I've just chosen online as an example. And here the P stands for plus, M for minus, I for interesting. So very similar to our SWOT chart. Interesting is just similar to other. So again, you're getting them to have a look at what are the pluses of communicating online, what are the minuses, and what do they find interesting about it. So an interesting could be, well, it's interesting that online we have the ability to communicate 24/7. No matter what time it is within the world, you can always be communicating with someone. Again, there's so many positives about that. Again, there can be negatives. And I think that's what we try and teach our children about cyberbullying and threats online is once upon a time before online world, the school bell would ring, and those children that may be bullied in the playground can go home into their safe and secure environment. Whereas the online world now is so available that if they are a victim of cyberbullying, it does not stop. It's 24/7. So that's interesting that they might be able to bring up and would spark a lot of conversation. Okay, so that sort of draws to the end of the webinar and how we can teach a difference to online, offline. So I'm just going to go through just a few more things within Alannah and Madeline that you can draw on if you need some more resources. Whilst I'm doing this, if you have any questions, please ask and we'll come to you at the end. So I just wanted to remind you that the content that I've gone through today is a version of our Connect program. And within our Connect program, I was just going to show you what actually is available, whether you are in a school, library, or a parent. We have many workshops that are suitable to primary students, secondary students, adults, parents. whether it's about digital reputation, trending, so what's going on at the moment with our youth, parenting in the digital world, workplace bullying, respectful relationships online and offline, that's something that we spoke about today, and our other services. So if you're interested in any of the Connect workshops, you just need to go to our website and you can have a look here of the outlines of each workshop. The resources that I've gone through today are a part of our digital licence, which is a tool that you can use within schools and libraries, and it's an online quiz that students can go through and answer questions about many things about online. So these are the modules that it goes through: communicating safely online, digital devices, protecting privacy, searching and researching, creating and sharing, social networking and gaming, credit coins and tokens. Then we have two versions. We have an under 13, which is friends and strangers, and 13 plus, relationships and reputations. So that is a tool that is accompanied with a lot of resources that I went through today to actually teach students all about the online world. So if you would like some more information about that, there's a website there, and I'll be emailing you with the links for Connect and the digital licence. And just to finish off, don't forget this Friday we have another webinar to finish our eSmart week with Judy and Joe, who are eSmart extraordinaires. They'll be looking at examples for schools, libraries and communities of how to build cyber safe communities. Which is obviously what eSmart Week is all about this year. So thank you so much for attending. I hope that you got some information out of today. We do have a question from Karen. Thanks, Karen. Karen says, this leads to great further discussion with the students. I find that they are honest in our discussions. Fantastic. Thanks, Karen. Do you suggest parents monitor teenage online communication? That's from Bobby. Bobby, I think it comes down to respect for them as well about their privacy. I think open communication with your parents, with your children, is the most powerful thing. I myself have a 13-year-old, and he's just started on social media, and one of our agreements is that if I ask to see who he's following on social media, if I ask to see what he's posting, that he'll be very upfront with that and show me. That's the only way I really monitor him, and if there was any closed, I guess, about him not wanting to show me, then obviously I would investigate further. But I think it does come down to parents showing mutual respect as well, but obviously there's a lot of cues that you can be careful and watch out for. So obviously retreating to their bedroom a lot, you know, being really sneaky on the computer and things. There's many things that you can look out for, and a great resource is iParent on the eSafety Commissioner, Office of the eSafety Commissioner website. There's some really great strategies there if you're a grandparent or parent. So I am happy to send the link to you, Bobby, and I think you'll find that really helpful. Well, that concludes our webinar. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of eSmart Week. Thank you.
It was great. It was really good. Yeah. No, it was really very fluent, very informative, very informed. I thought it was great.
Oh, good, thank you. We got some good comments.
Yeah, super. Bobby, she's a
Bobby loved it. She gave my thing. I agree, trust and respect. Said she's a wonderful presentation. Many thanks. Oh, good.
That's really excellent. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, no, it was very good. It was, you know, it sort of hit the high spots, but it made him thirst for more.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I reckon so. And you know, feel that they might actually be interested in some of those Connect workshops.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Just showing them quickly what's there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, will draw them to the website.
But it's also really good alerting them to the fact that you know the E-Safety Commission has got resources that freebies that they
Absolutely.
can draw on. I mean, there's lots. Are we not recording it?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No, it stopped. No one sees your screen. Do we need to do anything more? I don't know.
Just close it off, I'm guessing.
Close it?
Yeah.
Before you can leave, you must choose another mode to run the webinar in your absence. Oh, end webinar for all.
Maybe, yeah.